Hi, Mary. Hi, Mary. Welcome.
I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Feeling fussy, walking in my Balenciennes, trying to bring out the fabulous. Cause I give up way too much. I'ma need like 2 shots in my cup. Wanna get up, wanna get down. That's how I feel right now. Oh, I've been so down and under pressure. I'm way too fine to be distressed, yeah. Oh, I'm not the girl
This is a good one, Daisy. Perfect.
Right. Past, present, future. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you for sharing in the comments. Welcome to Embracing Equity series, Real Talk, Real Action. I've been so looking forward to this episode in particular with my dear friend and the current board chair of Montessori for Social Justice, Regina Dyson. We are truly grateful that you are joining us in this space today. Your presence here shows a commitment to a social justice movement that is bigger than ourselves, and we appreciate that. Today, we're going to be coming together as part of the Montessori for Social Justice community, and this webinar is an opportunity for us to reconnect, reflect on the movement's journey, and explore the future possibilities that lie ahead for us all. And for me, that's deeply personal. Social justice isn't just a concept, it's a life mission. And my journey into this work started with the realization that education holds immense power. Power not only to impart knowledge, but to shape a just and equitable society. And that's why I committed myself to this path, because I believe in the transformative power of education. And as a Montessori educator, as a principal, as a teacher trainer, and a founding board member of Montessori for Social Justice, I really believe that there is so much potential in Montessori as a pathway toward a more equitable world. Regina, can you share about your own story and what brought you to MSJ?
First, well, thank you, Daisy. Welcome, everyone. Daisy, first, let me say how much gratitude I have and appreciation for being invited to this dialogue with you together. You know, you are near and dear to me, and I have such deep deference for the work that you've been doing and that you continue to do. So I am ever grateful that we have become friends and colleagues and co-conspirators
Me
in
too.
this work. So thank you. And then welcome and thank you to everyone who's is able to join us today. I deeply appreciate everyone's patience for the reset. I know that sort of threw folks off a little bit, and I know that this is back to school week for a lot of folks. So thank you for joining us today, and I know that we'll have other conversations in the future in person and however we can. I wanted to say that. So my current role with MSJ is as the chair of the board of directors. And MSJ, as folks may know or may not know, is reemerging post COVID. And like for many folks where they are in their seats and in the work that they do, COVID had a huge impact on folks, and that included MSJ. Coming to MSJ officially to date, I was able to attend. I've always been on the periphery with MSJ as I have colleagues and friends who have been a part of its genesis and coming forth over its timeline. And It was with the conference in Chicago in 2023 that I was able to attend with a high school student who also happens to be my student. And it was all of what MSJ has always been when it comes together in community with its mission and vision. And then I was contacted by my co-board members, Mercedes and Lindsay, and invited to join the board, and then later on asked to serve in the chair capacity. So it's been a very fleeting 6 months or so, more than we're September now, so 9 months with all the things. But that's the short of it.
Awesome.
Being in partnership. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to run on.
I mean, yeah, it's been a whirlwind, right?
It's been a whirlwind. Exactly.
And I think that's why when you and I connected, we were like, we should do some sort of reunion and grounding where we take a moment to look back at the roots of Montessori for social justice, where we are today, and what you envision, what we all collectively also envision and hope for the future of this movement. So I wonder if we could start with Maria Montessori, obviously a revolutionary leader advocating for social reform, women's rights, the rights of children. She famously said that children are both the hope and the promise of mankind, right? She understood the importance of education as a force for social change that could bring about true equity. And that work over 100 years ago has laid the foundation for what we're doing today. At the same time, it's really important to ask ourselves right now, in our lived reality, how do you approach social justice in education today? And we would also, obviously I want to hear from you, Regina, but we'd also invite everyone, our participants here, to share as well in the chat. How do you approach social justice in education today? And Regina, maybe you can talk us through what MSJ is doing today that is relevant, applicable, and productive in our current context.
Yes. Thank you. And definitely, MSJ is a community. That's all that from its beginnings has been the work, the vision and the mission of its community. And so that's anyone who is Montessori, that's practitioner, that's parent, that's student, that's advocate, that's activist in that Montessori context. And so its mission and vision is deeply and essentially connected to the community itself, right? So that is, I'm adding to the invitation to offer what those who are here with us today want to share. For image, things are same, and the different from its beginnings to now 2024. When we're talking, we meaning the board are talking through how we want to focus, how do we want to recalibrate ourselves and stage MSJ, and MSJ is in a very unique position, unlike a lot of Montessori organizations, in that we truly can collaborate, partner with, attend to the fundamental needs and aspirations of the Montessori community without obligation or restriction by others, right? And that is a really invaluable component of MSJ. So meaning that we don't have to do things one particular way or another, or constrict ourselves to a particular set of ideals or pathways, right? So what we have honed in on is that we definitely want to do more around access for adults and their training and support and their resources in general within their working environments, but also specifically to social justice. So we're working really closely with Loyola. Carrie is on the board, and so we're looking at what is meaningful, what would be helpful in that process, that's measurable and sustainable. We want to do more with adolescent curriculum, leadership development, and putting them at the table and in the room with their voices about what the needs, that future planning. We each share the same feeling and passion around that it is our young people who are really going to change the paradigm. And we want to be prepared adults with prepared resources and materials and a prepared environment to support that and be responsive, right? And then we also want to be able to be better positioned with supporting practitioners in their place of work, so that be it HR, be it developing programs that embody social justice practices and contextualizing that for their unique environments, in addition to policy and laws and things that are happening in their states and in their regions. We want to do more with that in collaboration with other organizations. What I think some folks will remember this, a lot of folks don't realize this, is that MSJ preceded and sort of was like the seed for a lot now of organizations, be it ABAR or anti-racism or social justice. MSJ and that body of people, and Daisy, you know this about me because we've talked about it a lot, I have a deep deference for beginnings and the folks who launched a thing, right? So that's you and a whole bunch of folks, right? And if it weren't for MSJ, I think that big work would have come forward anyway, but MSJ put the Montessorians to the task together.
Yeah,
To
that's
be
right.
able to do things where they are in really meaningful, powerful, and necessary ways, right?
Yes. Because it
And
feels
we,
so lonely when you are
right, we
missing
feel alone.
school or in your
Yes.
room. So being able to be part of a community that
Yeah.
is bigger than yourself
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
like there is someone in your corner, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
maybe we can talk a little bit about that journey that has brought us all here today with the MSJ movement, starting with a group of energetic Montessori parents, educators, trainers, including Mira Debs, who was doing her dissertation work and noticed that everywhere she went, individuals were passionate about accessible Montessori education,
Yes.
right? They wanted to connect around this. And she wrote a book about it. I'll link it here. So in 2013, after the International Montessori Congress in Portland, Oregon, Mira started a listserv, and in June 2014, the first public Montessori unconference was held at the City Garden Montessori Charter School in St. Louis, Missouri, where our very own Senior Director of Leadership, Dr. Nicole Evans, was the principal, making, it was the beginning of this really beautiful group. Regina,
Yes.
can you walk us through then what happened next?
So to my knowledge and awareness, it was different projects were taking life in different places. I'm going to say 2017, 2018, but definitely
Let's
like
start with
2019.
let's start with the
Mhm.
second public Montessori conference that happened. So
Okay.
right
Let
after
me pull
that,
up. Okay.
2013, 2014, I want to do a timeline. So
Yes, yes.
after the 2014 unconference in City Garden,
Oh, for the third conference, which was in 2016,
the second
right?
one,
Yeah. Are we at the second one? Okay. Sorry about that, Daisy. For the second one, which was in Salt Lake City, in Utah, that's when the mission and the name was determined by that group to start the launch group at that time. And then the third conference, which was in 2016, in Cambridge at the Tobin Montessori School, and that focuses on building the public Montessori movement and advancing educational equity. And then in 2017 was the founding board or launch of the founding board, which were elected by the MSJ community. And Daisy confirmed, was that the attending MSJ community
oh,
that did that work
that was
together?
virtual. So it was everyone who wanted to be
Hmm.
vote could vote for
Yeah,
that election.
that's That's fantastic. We want to return to that. You all convened, and that was the first board meeting, the first official board meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was at the fourth conference in Houston. And then in 2018, there was a conference held in St. Paul, Minnesota. 2019 was another conference hosted by Harmony Montessori School in Portland. And then that conference included a 2-day long pre-conference event, decentering whiteness, and a full day retreat for Montessorians of color of the
Mm-hmm.
global majority. I heard so many fantastic things about that. And then there was the break due to COVID. That's a simple way to put it, but yes, uh, very simple way to put it. And then July 2023, we had our first on the other side of COVID conference in Chicago at Near North Montessori, who hosted us. And that was also another wonderful event. That was our most recent gathering. And then now we will be working toward expanding our board and growing our board group and our working committees. And we are looking at 2025 conference planning,
Mm-hmm.
in short. Yeah. Daisy, I have to thank you for that. Giving
Well,
me the cliff notes. I just want to acknowledge the work. Thank you for the
yeah,
cliff
yeah,
notes.
yes, yeah. Just a timeline of where we
Yes,
are. It does feel like a blur. Um,
it does. Yeah.
in that in that
Mhm.
relatively short history, MSJ has touched so many people. And
Mhm.
I'm curious, if folks can also share in the chat what aspect of the MSJ movement, um, what kind of impact has it had on your work? Um, and maybe for you, Regina, as the current board chair and president, why do you think this organization resonates with so many people?
Yeah. Um, so I want to say this, Daisy, while we're here. I cannot see the chat, so I'll lean on to you if there's something to stop and talk about or engage with. So I wanted to say that before saying anything more. Um, for MSJ, I think, and I hate to speak on behalf of other people, but in the many conversations that I've been able to have since joining MSJ formally and in this capacity, this is at conferences, through direct contact, folks really are, and I sort of mentioned this earlier, that they see Montessori for Social Justice as a nexus organization, an organization and community that can speak to things wholeheartedly, with transparency, with an immense pool of expertise, knowledge, lived experience, um, and probably foremost, by attending the conferences and engaging in this community, folks feel seen, heard, valued in ways that are not intact, if even allowed in some cases, to be frank,
Right.
where they rise and rest, live, sweat, work, cry, have joy, all of those things. And MSJ has provided that. It's been healing, it's been revitalizing, it's been empowering, it's been deeply connecting.
Mhm.
And I have yet to, in my brief years and say 30, 35 professional years as an educator, I have not yet experienced what MSJ has offered and endeavors to continue to offer in terms of drawing people together who have a shared mission around equity and healing and wholeness and justice, and in ways that are not the check boxes or check equity, as Embracing Equity has termed it, but in truly meaningful ways. I don't experience that, and I go many conferences and I interact with lots of people, but MSJ um, provides that in ways that have yet to be experienced otherwise, I think that the
Being that
transparency
visible.
and the vulnerability are key. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, that's something that stood out to me as well, both as a attendee of the
Yeah.
MSJ conference and also
Yeah.
as a board member. Is like the environment was prepared for
Mhm.
us to really show up in our full humanity
Yes.
and to be able to be affirmed in
Yes.
that humanity as people who are really passionate about,
Yeah.
you know, providing that for children.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm curious, since MSJ started in 2013 and it's been 11 years, right? And
Can you
I've been
believe it? 11 years.
yeah, it's been 11 years and yet
Wow.
still there has been a real halt in progress in terms of organizational infrastructure, lack of
Right.
staffing, confusion over what is happening. There's been a
Mhm.
lot of um, obstacles, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can share with us what have been or currently are obstacles that are hurting, hindering, or diluting the mission of MSJ and the growth of
Yeah.
that organization, the growth and stability of that organization.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, none of what I will say or identify or is even speculated about or perceived, right, from where we're sitting around the elephant has been overnight things. I think like any launching or new entity, enterprise, or endeavor, we can be really in our passion and in our ideals and our individual. What do we think a thing should be and how it should be and who should be doing it and when, right? So there's that. There's the human piece of it and what can present and feel like opposing or conflicting interests. And that can hinder organizational growth or stability or clarity for sure, right? COVID definitely skewed the work on the other side of because the board prior to COVID and the working committees prior to COVID did a lot of great work, strategic planning, furthering, framing the mission and how to go forward and engaging folks. And COVID surely threw a curveball beyond what folks could, and then you got to prioritize, right? Where your energy and your attention and your resources going. So I definitely feel like that's a huge piece. On the other side of COVID, um, I'm going to shout out Dr. Lindsay Pollock, who remains on the board. She kept MSJ intact on a really, basic level so that when it was time to reemerge and not necessarily putting a timeline on it, but she knew and has been committed to like, okay, the time will come and the call will be cast and we'll come back to it. And I deeply, deeply appreciate her for that. Um, and then the conference, she and Mercedes and Latoya and George and a few people, like, well, let's get this conference so that we can resume this big work together. Um, with boards in general, and this isn't specific necessarily to MSJ, but includes MSJ and organizations, especially 501c3s. And this is my background in board development and nonprofits and such as a project manager professionally, as a practitioner, we often will find that we don't give enough time and attention to the nuts and bolts, right? To the logistics, to a stellar foundation, to those things. And then we'll find that we're all over the place when it comes to being decisive and clear and um, uh, assigning roles, responsibilities, and taking those things on. And then at the same time, life is also lifing, right? And we're keeping our nose above. And these recent years, governmentally, that's impacted us, significantly as individuals and as professionals. So there have been lots of things, present that have impacted it. And, now we're at that place of where it's getting our legs up under us, being a working board. And sometimes folks aren't clear about what a working board means. There are, and again, it's not just MSJ, but this is something that people can find themselves navigating with in general, includes MSJ. That, boards of directors are not just resume builders, especially when we're talking about social justice work or in the community work or on the grounds work or beginning work. So
Yeah.
while it's not starting over, there's internal things, to do. There's the business of being a 501c3. There's infrastructural things. Those are the things that we're lending our attention and time and such to, and finding our groove, so that we can be productive and progressive and be engaging and be clear, and have good footing. That's where we are, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Okay.
I know
And
you like the analogy that I made in one of our conversations about that MSJ is in that adolescent stage of development. So for
mhm,
all of the practitioners here, if you've done your adolescent work or even started to learn, very much that's where we are in our timeline of development, right? And so while there's lots of potential and lots of knowledge and so forth, it's also that coaching and that honing and that refining, while at the same time giving the space to learn lessons, to make mistakes, to figure out how we interact with each other in a meaningful way as we do this cosmic work together. But we're definitely, that's what I look to in terms of having an understanding of where we are.
yeah. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
a really uh graceful um review of the reality that you're currently in. Um
Hmm.
and in terms of your unrelenting belief in what is possible
Yes.
for the future of Montessori
Yeah.
for social justice. So I'm wondering, yeah, following that um, acceptance of the board chair and president role, um,
Yeah.
can you share, why you decided to take on that role and what are your reflections and goals in this reemergence in this
Yeah.
stage?
Um, so why did I embrace the invitation to join the board and be in this capacity?
Yeah.
I really, and you've learned this about me in our conversations. I don't believe that timing is by incident. And uh, so on a measurable way, attending the conference in 2023 and bringing uh, Dutchin, who is my bio student, but also is an adolescent who attended and graduated from a Montessori high school in Maryland.
Mhm.
One is a family Montessori school, and bringing them to the conference and observing and hearing and reflecting on their takeaway and experience and so forth was affirming and clarifying, a call to action to me, as an educator, as a Montessorian, as a parent, as an adult who walks in this brown skin daily,
Mhm.
um, in places and spaces that aren't necessarily embracing of that in deep ways, right? So that really informed, like, okay, what's next for me, and um, what's my call at this season in my life, and so that's
Mhm.
huge. And folks who have met Dutchin and who Dutchin's been to different conferences and met y'all, know like, oh yeah, we get that. But if you haven't met Dutchin yet, you wouldn't know how deep that goes, right? So
Yeah.
there's that, but also I'm not just Dutchin as a high schooler. I'm also at a high school, of students, and they have made it more crystal clear for me personally.
Yeah.
My call at this season in my life is to be
Yeah.
as prepared and available to and supportive of their cosmic task. And
Yeah.
I do deeply feel that is their generation and thereafter who will be the shift.
Exactly.
Um,
Right.
and if they have the Montessori experience to embolden them,
Hmm.
basically, which means that we recognize their innate possibility, their innate potential, their innate genius, and we're doing the work of making sure that they can be confidently and courageously and safely seen, heard, uh, activated, right? Then that's my work.
Exactly.
Um,
Right. Right.
and I'm really super clear about that. And MSJ is committed to that's a part of its mission and vision, right? To do that. And the diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't only matters of culture and ethnicity. It's gender. It's many things. It's age. It's all of those things. And so I really see them as being the precipice, so to speak, of what's next.
Yeah.
Um, and so with that, that's what motivates me to work with the people that I get to work with, to interact with the folks that I get to interact with at this time, at this place, in this way,
Yeah.
to move forward with that. Yeah.
That is what energizes me about your leadership as the chair
Mm,
is your clarity around not doing this um, for your own career, but rather as a true pathway for our
yes.
youth. Thinking about how do we amplify young
Yes.
people to become leaders
Yep.
of a world we don't even know
We
is
don't know.
happening,
Exactly.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the way in which young people like Dutchin, I mean, Dutchin is incredible, um, views intersectionality,
Oh my gosh.
goodness, like there is a very different mindset
Yes.
um, that is so valuable and often is missed in Montessori. In Montessori,
Yes.
there's still this pedestal
Missed and dismissed.
dismissed
Yes.
because there's a
Yes.
pedestal for like the old
Yeah.
elder Montessori
Yeah. Yeah.
trainers and old ways of doing things from 100 years
Right.
ago. It's like,
Right.
yeah, that was great for that time.
Right.
And how do
And
we
mhm.
evolve, right? How
Yeah.
do we really make this something that is relevant for this
Yes.
moment, for the
Yeah.
reality that we're living in?
Yeah.
And then how do we collectively
Yes.
envision a future of Montessori for social justice, right?
Yes.
That feels
Yes.
existential to me, quite honestly. Like, it feels like if we don't envision collectively what is possible for Montessori for social
We're
justice,
just on a hamster wheel. It will be
yeah,
the same, right? We're on a hamster wheel.
or in Montessori's own words, will shrivel up like an
Eh,
unused organ and die,
yes.
right? Like
Yes.
it's not going to be relevant anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe we can shift into um, this visioning, this
Mm.
freedom dreaming. Um,
Yes.
invite the audience to also participate in this. What
Please.
is your
Yeah.
vision for the future of Montessori for social justice? How can we collectively work towards this vision?
Yeah. I want to add too, while we're going into that, in addition to the, Dutchin and young people being center, I deeply know that Montessori is the most apparent way to liberation. Whether we're adults teaching, heads of schools leading, boards framing, or and even more students participating and engaging, and parents supporting. and enhancing, that it is the way, that it is the commonplace that we can really have a liberated life. I know that I know that I know that, right? So yeah, those two, that's the undergirding part of why I am showing up in the way that I show up, and persisting in the way that I endeavor to persist. But yeah.
Well, and how do you imagine that could look in the future? Because right now it looks
Yeah.
like very inaccessible. Less than 3% of schools in the US are Montessori. Um, there's a rigidity to the training, to the credentialing.
There's bottlenecking, there's, all of the things.
There's like all of these restrictions and
Right.
difficulties with it in the name of
Right.
keeping it authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Right.
what does that look like if you have that deep knowing of what Montessori actually is and could be in its most liberatory form?
Yeah.
What does
I
that look
mean,
like in the future?
we definitely need to grow our adolescent programs, whatever shape or form they take, right? So be that within a school or as a school, the full adolescent window, right? From 12 through 18. And then I have ideals around shaping that 18 through 23, because that is
Yeah,
yet another untouched,
totally.
neglected area, right?
Right.
Um, and so that I feel is essential. We need to have that available in all of the ways possible. Um, and be that, lab schools, be that hybrid dynamics, be that inviting them to conferences, making sure that their experiences and voices and perspectives are a part of the shaping, versus the rest of us going and doing a thing and leaving them out of the conversation and the determination, right?
Mhm.
That they are a part of that formulation, so to speak. I feel like Jesse Jackson with my words, but they all apply. um, so that's very essential. I do feel that because I have personally such a deep value for ancestors and our elders with a capital E, some healing and some recovery and some reconnection with that wisdom that only time and experiences can afford. Some intentionality around that to bring the core of those experiences over time into, forward and into what's next. um you know Knowing where we come from is what will help us to know where we're going,
Mhm.
as a proverb. And not to be cliche, but I believe that is essential, and that's a part of it, right? That there's intentionality, advanced intentionality and determination around organizations, particularly Montessori organizations, be that training, be that certifying, be that leadership development, be that we um, make a pledge and commit demonstratively that can be seen by all to collaboration, and that looks like including, every Montessori organization, and I've said this in different conversations in different rooms, should be doing equity audits. No
Yeah,
differently than 501c3s should be doing financial audits.
right.
I believe that an equity audit is necessary, um, integral to the work. And it is the only way that organizations can come forward into this with integrity. I believe that without pause or apology. That
Yeah, can you speak
Mhm.
to that? Because I know obviously you're doing a year-long equity audit and organizational partnership with Embracing Equity right now. So for
Yes,
folks who don't
yeah.
know what that means, could you speak to what that looks like and why it's so beneficial and, in your own words, necessary for organizations?
Surely. I mean, I'll speak to it from personal and broader.
Okay.
Coming into MSJ into this capacity at this time, and it wasn't singularly me. Carrie felt has a background in partnership with Embracing Equity that precedes our roles together with MSJ, but we were very ardent about, well, if we're stepping into this role, these capacities to do this work, that we very much wanted to partner with, specifically with Embracing Equity, to support us as leaders, as change agents, as coming into all things at this season. And was already a fan of Embracing Equity prior to our current partnership. And that was, I've been a part of and continue to work with Oneness as we are um, in our implementations or framing / implementation stage of an equity audit that we've done here with Dr. Val Weiss and in other organizations that I've worked with, or, I've always, be it chambers of commerce or schools or nonprofits, it is a part of my process of some sort of audit of sorts in terms of programs, initiatives, engagement, all those sorts of things. It's a way of checks and balancing, clarifying, that we are doing what we say we're doing in our mission and vision, where the gaps are, and how to enhance, enrich, course correct, right? And so with Embracing Equity, we meaning MSJ board, we've done 2 parts together. We've done our the anti-racist cohort, and that was our then 6 board members. And then I invited an additional 4 other practitioners in different roles and seats and timelines to join us with that, who have an interest in continuing in substantial ways with MSJ going forward. And that work was so powerful and fortifying and tooling for all of us. And it was a mixed bag of lives who were in that group.
Yes.
And really insightful for getting acquainted with each other within this work together, which is very complex and layered and tender and difficult.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't change whether we're in a program or not. That's the walk that we walk every day, if we're walking this walk, right? And it brought us together in ways and connected us in ways and helped us to see perspectives in ways, especially during the height, or what became a part of it was, the things that are happening in Gaza and so forth. And so an invaluable experience, one that I and we're committed to. Then how do we build on this, right?
Yes. Right.
So we did that cohort work together with Embracing Equity, and then we're doing the year-long leadership. The 3 of us of the board are doing the long year version, and that includes coaching and support and tooling, and it helps us as leaders, for as much as we think we know, there's plenty that we don't, and then our bandwidth gets all, can get fractured and diluted and all those things. So that helps us to keep us connected and keep us honed in. And this core strengths component of the leadership program, oh my, and I've done that in different ways and so forth, but this way, it's just mind blowing. And I'm using it daily, and I defer to it regularly in terms of having understanding, being responsive to, being considerate of, right? Because, while I'm brown and I walk that brown life in different ways, we all have things that we're bringing to the table, right? We also have things that are dormant in places to do better or work on. And this work in this format really helps us to do that. So I'm going to say that probably of leadership development, this has been the most impactful and meaningful that I've experienced over different types of leadership things that I've done over the years.
Agree.
Mhm.
I mean, same for me. And I think
Yeah.
that in the chat, some folks are asking, Stacy's saying, we need to be
Hi,
able to
Stacy.
connect,
Mhm.
share experiences. That's the
Yes,
idea behind this cohort, and being able to provide a prepared environment for adults to
exactly.
come together and not have it spiral or derail, but actually be a productive healing
Yes,
space.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
and as Montessorians, we know that spiritual preparation of self is the most paramount work that
yes.
we do when
If
it comes
that's not
to.
happening intentionally as a way of life, then you're not really doing Montessori. Honestly, that's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take it how you want, but that's what I'm gonna say. And that's an ongoing thing. That's not, and we all fall off, but that's not a okay, we did a thing and that's it. We read a book and that's it.
Daily.
That is an ongoing thing. Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think your point around inequity in all forms, of course, we address, and Montessori sees inequity in all forms, right? There's
Yes.
classism, sexual identity, there's all these different
Exactly.
of oppression.
Yep.
Um, and
That are structural, intentional, and deeply embedded.
and
Yes.
and internalized. And
Yes. And internal. Yep.
And the
Yeah.
reason why we start with, and you spoke to this too, but the reason why at Embracing Equity, we start with anti-racism training
Hmm.
is because that tends to be, and it's not by coincidence, it's by design in our society, the area that people struggle with the
The
most
most.
in
Yes.
confronting their own racial identity,
Yeah.
how to build an anti-racist identity.
Yeah.
And that looks different for different people, depending on
Right.
your lived experiences and
Right.
your different social identities. It's going to look differently. So
Yeah.
we do offer two different programs. There's anti-racism training for everyone.
That's the
And
one we did. Hmm.
that's what you did, where it's
Hmm.
intentionally racially diverse,
Yeah.
intentionally racially diverse facilitators.
Hmm.
Um, and then by request, we have an anti-racism training specifically for white people.
I am so excited about that. Yeah. That's
And that
awesome.
and that is such an important space for
Hmm.
compassionate accountability without
Without
shaming,
shaming. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But that
Hmm.
journey as a white person developing a white anti-racist identity in a
Yeah.
white dominant society, it's going
Right.
to be different.
Yeah.
And there is a unique curriculum that
Yeah.
we've developed to support that learning,
Well,
right?
congratulations. I love that. Yeah.
So right
That's
now you can sign up. We've fundraised specifically so that you don't have to wait for your organization or your leader. You can sign up as an individual, 50% off through September 15th. So
that's thrilling as well because that's a new way for it to because it was group only before, right? Yeah, that's
usually,
exciting,
yeah,
Daisy. Yeah.
this is a rare opportunity by demand that
Yeah.
we're opening it up for individuals.
Yeah.
Um, but typically we only work, with these kinds of
Yeah.
institutional commitments like with MSJ, where,
Right.
there's a long-term partnership.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
realize there's individuals who are part of organizations that aren't at that same pace,
Yeah.
or aren't at that same commitment. And
Yeah.
so that's why we've opened it up for
Yeah.
for individuals. So that's a great call to action for us, as Montessori for Social Justice community members. Are there any other calls to action that
Yeah.
you want to
I
share?
want to I want to emphasize too that the Teaching for Equity micro credential that Embracing Equity offers is also another very accessible opportunity as an individual or with your co-teachers or with your school and or with your school and so forth, how that we didn't do with MSJ, but I'm grateful that our head of school here at Oneness and our board approved. We had 45 of our team from last year who signed up for it all at once. And then we had and continue to have conversations from, and the idea about that, it's good for you individually, but by doing it in group, especially with your working group where you are, right, in your schools or your organizations, it establishes a common language, a common reference point, a common contextualization of that work, right? That is difficult to see and keep at the forefront at times when we are, as teams, as collectives, doing ABAR work, anti-bias, anti-racist work, training, and so forth in different places, right? And I'm a big fan of like, well, let's at least at minimum try to get our conversation and our context into a shared and common place. And that Teaching for Equity micro credential really supports that. That 50% off is what made it possible for us in that timing at the beginning of the school year last year. And I even emailed the head of school and the board when I saw the promotion for this year come through of like, okay, we have new staff members. It would be great if we can sign them up for it too, right? To supplement and enrich. And so, and that also provided a measurable meeting of goals in our equity report and recommendations, because that is one of our top priorities of doing that work in our school environment. So there are ways. It can be here, it can be here, it can be here, or a mixing of it. But I do want to encourage people to do that. And even if you've had ABAR in other places from other sources, I deeply encourage you to do Embracing Equities because it's just, it's super really very helpful. And we're always learning all the time, even if we've gotten it once. It's a continuum, right?
Yep.
So in addition to that, when we talked about this a little bit, call to action is, for me, it's always in my conversations, and even I, look to myself for this, is to start with self first. So I definitely ask for educators, whatever your title or seat is, but in interacting with young people, and in the spirit of doing no harm, or being attentive to doing no harm, and sometimes that's unclear what that is. Start with self first, to reflect, be an observation, engage with new information and different perspective, and do that as a practice, not just as a one-off. Corral your wagons or partner with people that could be challenging to your perspective and to your experience today, in partnership, in a mutually respectful and loving way, because that will help to heal, to identify or acknowledge, and then position us individually within our shared environments to be more fortified and informed, because there's a lot of work and action and people don't have enough information to progress. So always with self-care, self-knowledge, self-enrichment, start with self first. When we are looking to, when we say, oh, it's all with the students, what are we doing for the students? We're not doing for students if we are not making sure that we are intact. With parents, that's something, and Daisy, I know you know this, we have to put the mask on ourselves first before we can help others to survive and overcome and go forward. Now, of course, sometimes it has to be simultaneous, but I always say, start with self. And if you have anything, to add to that, Daisy, jump in there, or others that are with us on the call today. But that's a big one.
You did mention, you kind of teased that we are going to be seeing a MSJ conference in 2025. Is there
Yes.
anything folks can do to stay plugged in or,
Yes. So I'll be posting via our social media and the whatever our listserv is to the state. And as I have been doing at conferences, there'll be a survey that many folks have replied to, but we want to gather as much insight as possible of our community, where you are, of availability, of priorities, of need, of, all of that information, so that as we're planning the how and the where and the who, it really is in response to and considerate of what the community is asking for and needing. So that'll be coming out. And I've been in conversation with folks, but we're really leaning toward hybrid. So hybrid meaning in person and digital. And that's because we really have a deep concern about access. We don't want to compete with conferences where folks have to get their training or their refresher, because we don't want to. So we're trying to get a good handle on what's happening so that it's available to folks no matter where they are. And we don't want we don't want the decisions to be based on, well, how can I pay for transportation? How can I pay for the hotel? We don't want that to be a barrier for us to come together to do the big work and fortifying that is done in the MSJ community, right? When we come together. So that's huge. So we're looking at that. Part of it has been trying to, and working with other organizations in terms of being more aware of who's doing what, so that what we're doing is complementary and supplementary versus competitive or in conflict, or even duplicating in ways that we don't need to duplicate.
Right.
Or replicate, right?
What do you want to hear from the folks here? Is there anything that would help you? I know you're collecting a lot of insights from the community. What would you like to impart as we close out?
I think I'd like to hear from folks. I would love to hear more about what are some of the challenges that you face where you are in relationship to social justice, be it, in class, as a worker, as or an employee, in leadership, in your Montessori practice on the day to day. I think that's a big question, and I would love to hear more about that. And it's one that I ask whenever I'm in conversation, what supports, what depletes, what helps, what hinders, what harms, what helps, right? What fortifies. Yeah.
And do you have any information on if folks want to, join a committee or a board?
Yes, please email me if you're interested. And that's chair, CHAIR, at Montessori for Social Justice.org. And now that I'm through my summer and once the first week back to school gets on the other side of that, then I've got folks I need to respond to as it is, or we will be responding to. But yes, please email me if you're interested in a particular area, be it adolescents, be it intergenerational, be it LGBTQA+, be it conference planning, be it when we're at conferences together. MSJ will be at the IFC conference, we'll be at MPPI, we'll be at, so if you're going to those things and you want to talk and build together, email me about anything that has to do with getting us to the place so that MSJ can do the work that it was designed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And for those who are looking for a really concrete next step, sign up for the next webinar on September 18th. We're going to be speaking with another founding board member of Montessori for Social Justice, Luz Johnson. She's going to be coming on and talking about that self-work that you just
Awesome. Oh my gosh.
what
Yes,
does it mean?
please make that time.
What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to raise badass
Yes,
humans? And how
that's
do we do
exciting.
that from as parents in our parent?
That is my third call to action. Sign up for that.
There
Do
you
that.
go.
Yes, for sure. Do that. I'll be there. Let's do that. Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Regina. I'm so grateful
Thank
for you and
you.
everything you're doing
Oh,
for this community. I'm in your
appreciate you.
corner. You have all of us, and we're with you. Thank you.
Awesome. It's good to be here together. Yeah, it's meaningless without us all together. So thank
Yes.
you, Daisy. You've been so
Onward.
patient.
Yes. Onward.
Awesome. Yes. So yes, please email me and be in touch. Sign up for one of the embracing equity opportunities that are there. I think Daisy, you're gonna extend the micro credential
Yes. Well,
opportunity a few
no,
more days for
email.
this. Perfect. Okay, that's fantastic.
All
And
right.
yeah, good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you
All right, everyone. Be well, be rested, hydrate, and be inspired. You're not alone.
later. All
Yeah.
righty.
All
Bye.
right.